Now, what they do is they fly autonomously, they spray their crops, they spray crops that they hover over, then they monitor for plant health. Now, how do they work? Now, inside that drone is something called a PID controller, which you may be familiar with. It's a proportional integral derivative controller. That's the full meaning of PID. So a PID controller is the same, uses the same logic your generator AVR uses. Those of us who have dabbled, who have opened and closed, and who have meddled with our generators, just spoiling them at times. So it's the AVR, your generator AVR uses these PIDs. So the drone knows where it should be, it checks where it is, and it corrects any error that it has. So on top of that, it has this GPS for positioning. During Bakel's presentation, he showed us a sensor that sprays rays, that disperses rays to get the dimensions of a room from the center, right? So if you place it at the center, then it disperses these rays that can map out a room, right? So this drone knows where it should be, it checks where it is, and it has GPS for positioning. It has this IMU sensor, these sensors that you can find in your smartphone and all that. So when a farmer hires this drone service, what they are using, they're using the control theory, not directly. They're using that computer vision indirectly. They're using the embedded systems indirectly, because they are not the ones who soldered everything. They are not the ones who wrote the programs and all that. But through use, they are relating with this technology. So we can see that robotics also concerns farmers. So it is not just about engineering alone. So, and the farmers are able to do this without writing a single line of code. So that's how extensive the value of robotics is. Now, back to our topic, what is the current reality of robotics in Nigeria? Bringing this home, now in Nigeria, robotics is mostly seen in your final year projects and in competitions like SACA has been on, right? Most of us didn't even know, not even aware that such competitions existed, because after the presentation that the people came to the group and were asking, where can I find such opportunities, right? Now, so in this final year project, what we find mostly I am working on a 4 degree of freedom robot arm. I'm working on a line following robot. I'm working on obstacle avoidance and all the rest of them. But let us talk about that robot arm that is so popular. So we know that a typical robot arm uses servo motors. Then it applies the principle of inverse kinematics, right? Now, to those who don't understand, inverse kinematics simply means, for instance, if I want my hand from point A to reach point B, inverse kinematics would be like asking myself, at what angle should I position my my elbows? What angle should I position my elbows for my hand to move from position A to position B? So that is inverse kinematics. Let me see. Okay. Now, so it is basically the same math that your brain does for you subconsciously. So these projects are not useless. I'm not saying that the 4 degree of freedom robot arms are useless. But what I'm saying is this painful part, that everything stops at demonstration. You agree with me that at that point, in fact, myself, I didn't even know what I was even doing for my robot, for my final project in my undergraduate days. So what I was doing was I'll read on this paper, I'll watch some YouTube. In fact, YouTube videos were the ones that guided me, that guided my project, right? So at that point, we don't have that wholesome understanding, or we don't have that beginner's understanding as to what robotics is at that point, right? Most of us don't. So they stop at just demonstration. So if they stop at just demonstration, then what then have they been teaching us? Because knowing how to move a robot arm is not the same thing as integrating it into industry, as it's not the same thing as integrating it into a factory, it's not the same thing as maintaining it. It's not also the same thing as scaling it. So where are these robots now used then? These robots that we are talking about now. So where are they used? The idea of building machines is to assist humans, right? Is to assist work, and robots also assist, right? In that sense. So robotics, we can say that robotics works best where humans struggle, right? So where do these humans struggle? Where can we find this human struggle? We find them in the healthcare system. The healthcare system. So take, for instance, the Da Vinci surgical robot in Ibadan. I don't know if you've been to that. There is one private hospital in Ibadan. They have this Da Vinci surgical robot. So it doesn't operate itself. One of my friends went for training. He went for training in Germany. And this training, he was just trained not on how to build the robots, right? He's an engineer, but he was trained on how to operate the robots. So since this robot doesn't operate by itself, it needs humans to operate them. So what it does is this: it filters hand tremors, it filters hand tremors. Then it gives surgeons that precision, because it is a machine. There should be that precision, right? So inside it, there are motion scaling algorithms. Inside it, there are feedback systems, force feedback systems, so to speak. Then we have, for the precision, we have all these high precision actuators. So that is robotics assisting humans and not replacing them. So we can find robotics in the healthcare system, right? So in Nigeria, you'll see systems like systems that use robotics and AI, all these robotic scanners, all these machine learning classifiers and image recognition systems. So they solve one Nigerian problem, like the RSAL. I don't know how many of you had heard about RSAL. RSAL was a company founded by one man, what is his name? But it was founded when he was 16. So RSAL uses robotics and AI to solve the problem of identifying fake drugs, right? So with the AI, it can tell you, okay, how many, to what degree, what percentage are these drugs fake? Now, how about in manufacturing? In manufacturing, now this is where everybody wants to go into AVR robotics. Everyone thinks the industrial application of robotics ends in manufacturing and begins from manufacturing. So global factories that use robots like the Fanuc M series. Bakel has spoken on the Fanuc M series, which was one of our projects, one of the internship projects, right, where we had to simulate the Fanuc degree of freedom, that is their operations, right? So these robots use things like path planning algorithms, right, to know their course, to plan their course. They use logic, like they apply logic for collision detection. Then they also use closed loop control. Now, for this closed loop control, what I mean by closed loop control, I mean that the robot checks if its output is correct. If it is not, then it corrects itself. So there is that constant communication with itself in and out. Now in Nigeria also, in the manufacturing ecosystem, Dangote uses automation, although it is not as advanced as the robotics that we have in mind, that we've seen. Don't forget that we are still discussing the state of robotics in Nigeria. So we've looked at the healthcare system, and now we are looking at the manufacturing. We are looking at robotics in manufacturing. So in Nigeria, so we have sensors. Dangote uses automation. They use sensors, and they use predictive maintenance, that is machine learning on vibration data. I had an interview at this Dangote refinery, which I flunked the other time because then, so I saw how we were able, they gave us an overview of what, let me check this, hello, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, good. All right. So we've looked at robotics in healthcare. We've looked at robotics in agriculture. We've seen that the robotics in Nigeria, there are existing implementation of robotics in the healthcare systems, right? But all these are imported. In manufacturing, take for instance Dangote that we just talked about. It is there. How about in which one again? The next slide. How about in agriculture? How about in agriculture? So in agriculture, we have things like is it NVID or NIVD? I don't remember how. Okay, normalized vegetation, yada 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 yada. So it's an imaging, normalized vegetation index, something something imaging, right? So what it does is with this technology, with this imaging technology, healthy plants will reflect light differently. Cameras will detect that difference, and then softwares built into that embedded system will map the crop health, right? This is mostly, I think, where I there was someone there that was trying to implement this. So what he was using is this. I don't remember that particular technology that he was using, but it is called the NDVI or NIVD. I'm going to check and confirm that. So this imaging is the same concept used in satellite imaging, right? So there is robotics in agriculture still. There is robotics even in your phone camera HDR processing. So it's the same concept that this technology uses, right? So in healthcare, there is robotics. In manufacturing, there is robotics. In agriculture, there is robotics. How about in logistics and inspection? You find robotics there. You find all these things like SLAM algorithms, the SLAM algorithms that you can tell how warehouse robots move, then how inspection drones navigate, how autonomous systems, autonomous vehicles work, and the rest of them, all these AVRs. So logistics and inspection security. Now, we've also heard about the Amazon. We've heard about Amazon delivery systems. They also apply this in logistics. They apply this in logistics. But let's also, since we are discussing the state of robotics in Nigeria, we discussed in agriculture, in this. Okay. Now, since we are discussing the state of robotics in Nigeria, right? Now, we can ask ourselves if robotics is actually lucrative in Nigeria, because when you were given the admission, as I was, most of you may have been excited to come in and study mechatronics engineering, right? So I was also excited because I saw robotics in my curriculum. So what actually the state is lucrative in Nigeria? So I have to run down the slide out, but the slide will be made available to you. So that's the big question that we are here to answer. Is it lucrative? So the answer I'll give is yes, robotics is lucrative. I mean, you can see the likes of Bakel, likes of Sahid, who are involved in one area of robotics or the other, right? So it is lucrative, but it is not evenly lucrative. Now, that was my short answer. But my long answer is this: that robotics will pay well where systems are deployed and where the value is measured, right? Now, for example, let's say a robot saves the factory 1 hour of downtime, right? So you fix this robot here, and because of these robots, and just as people say that robots will take your jobs, and which I don't believe in, which is not actually true, right? But then robots put in the work. If a human works 12 hours, a robot can work 24 hours, right? If a human being works 7 hours, a robot can work twice that amount. So let's say a robot saves this factory 1 hour of downtime. So that hour could be worth millions in production. Let's say it is producing a carton of goods, right? So if a human being was used to packaging about 100 cartons in an hour, and a robot can now save them, that a robot can work non-stop and no downtime. So it now produce 24 times that 100, that is the 24 hours times that 100. So that would be about 2,400 cartons, right? So that's how much it can produce in that hour. So in Nigeria, robotics deployment is very limited. So it is limited because the money is limited locally, very limited. But now, before we come down to discussing, I will come back to the Nigerian companies that are leading robotics. But let's look at the opportunities that exist. Opportunities that exist in robotics today. So there are local opportunities that exist in robotics, right? Different from what people may imagine, right? You'll find roles like robotics instructors, as we have in Aura Robotics. You have system integrators, you have control engineers, the likes of backend and automation engineers. These are the ones that combine that combine several niches into one, right? So these are the wholesome packages. So in robotics, it is important to note that integration is key, right? Because a robot is useless if it cannot communicate with its sensors, if it cannot connect to its machines, if it cannot even report data. So that is why robotics engineers, embedded systems engineers, control engineers, this is why they do robotics quietly, right? So you find them doing the work, but they are not ready to come outside. They don't feel that they have that knowledge. There is this thing they call something syndrome. There is this syndrome. I've forgotten the particular how to phrase it, but then they are not confident in their own skills because the application is not seen in Nigeria. The implementation is not seen. The application is right, but then they are quiet. They are silent. Please, if you can hear me, let me know. If you can, please. Yes, and anyone who wants.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Loud and clear. Loud and clear.
So we can see that there are local opportunities available, right? It just depends on thank you, imposter syndrome. Thank you, Oba. So it just depends on the opportunities that are available, right? On the ones that come to you and the ones you have the skill for. Someone is saying I am breaking. I'm not sure. Am I okay? Let me check my network. Let me switch networks. Okay, please check your network. Check your network. Someone just said that I'm not, that it's okay. So how about international opportunities? Remote and international opportunities. Yes, on LinkedIn, on Upwork, and through recommendation, you can find jobs, right? Depending on what skill you have. So this is where many Nigerians thrive, international and remote opportunities. You can see Bakel will be here and you'll be making calls, you'll be in meeting, from one meeting to another. He's trying to develop this system, he's trying to do this, these opportunities also exist locally, but they are quiet. Most of the times, the government or these parastatals will make you sign NDAs, mostly in Nigeria, to carry out this robotics work and others. So it is mostly quiet. You have to go deep to search for them. So Nigerians thrive in remote opportunities, right? Because globally, robotics teams need the ROS developers, they need computer vision engineers, they need AI perception engineers and ROS developers. This is what mostly do in robotics. Bagger said that he's a software person. He knows his hardware, but tinkering with all these microcontrollers, burning the microcontroller, because eventually you burn your microcontrollers. But tinkering with these systems, you'll find out that it costs more because you need to be repeating, and that's why I say the software aspect of robotics is actually more cost effective and is actually safer, like these ROS developers, because you you create a virtual environment, run your code, you simulate it. If it works, they now deploy it. So that's why we have all these RS developers in these remote opportunities. And then the RS, of course, you'll be simulating things with your sensors, you'll be simulating how your motors work, you'll be simulating your cameras and all the rest of them. So Nigerians do well here because we are very much used to debugging problems, and we are used to solving problems with limited solutions, right? So that's why we say anywhere Nigerians go, they thrive. If a Nigerian leaves, his home country today and travels overseas, it's difficult for you to hear a Nigerian that doesn't thrive, most especially the student community. All the students, the Nigerian students who get scholarship, you would never hear any one of them that dropped out of the scholarship, or someone that lost the job because or a Nigerian that lost his job because he was incompetent, right? So we have built this shell, we have built this resistance in ourselves, right? So that whatever the job is, we will run out. You understand? So Bakel always says run into the unknown. So whatever the job says, whatever the job is, we will run out. So basically, we learn the fundamentals and then we don't learn the shortcuts. Whatever it is, we will run out. But now the hard question now is, if robotics is this powerful, then why is Nigeria behind? Right? So if robotics is powerful, if these tools exist, if this talent exists in Nigeria, right, then why is Nigeria behind? Now, these are the reasons Nigeria is behind. Now, the first one is the high capital cost. Now, it is not news that industrial robots are expensive, right? I mean, a single ABB robot, a single ABB robotic arm can cost tens of thousands, right? And in dollars, because and this is before shipping, even before maintenance, doesn't even include all these fees. So robots will also need stable power, which we don't have in Nigeria. And robots will also need spare parts, right? For the parts that spoil in Nigeria. Robotics or automation systems will also need trained technicians, right? Which we are lacking in Nigeria. So for the Nigerian ecosystem, it's a very big risk. So instead of businesses going into it, businesses will now ask, will this robot pay for itself? And if they are not able to answer this question, then that's when they walk away. So that is it for the high capital cost. Then looking at the next reason why it is not Nigeria, we have the skills gap, right? The gap in critical skills. Robotics is not just one skill. You need to learn, you need to get into your math. I mean, math. I don't mean the surface of kinematics that we are scratching. You need to learn control systems. You need to learn your programming. You need to learn your AI. You need to learn your mechanics. You need to learn your electronics very well, right? So it depends on the aspects of robotics that you go into. So most engineers, and this is where we have specializations. Where we can have our developers, we can have embedded systems engineers, the rest of them. So these engineers are now trained in these specializations, right? So that is why you find brilliant programmers who don't understand motors because they have specialized. That's where you now find embedded systems engineers who are now afraid of software. So it is difficult to get the whole package. It is rare to get to find the whole package, but we can find the specialization, and even finding these specialists is difficult. So that is that about the skills gap. Now the next is the education system limitations. Now, in many schools, robotics is theoretical. I said this in my introduction that robotics is very theoretical, where we have under-equipped labs, we have students simulating what they cannot actually do. Right? So just bring this, get a video on YouTube, and then try to simulate it. That's just following the process. Don't get me wrong, simulation is good, right? But real robots need to behave so that you'll be able to troubleshoot them, right? Eventually, your motors are going to sleep. Your sensors will give you false data sometimes, right? So if you have never debugged, if you have never debugged a robot, you have never actually, you have never, if you have never learned, if you have not debugged a robot through simulation, or you've not debugged a code through, if you've not debugged a code based, depending on your area, right, you have not met robotics yet, right? Because these are the core areas of robotics. Right? How about in infrastructure, robotics in infrastructure? The truth is, robotics, Nigeria loves surprises, right? We love surprises because, I mean, it's outages, we have network, and network. Robots don't adapt. They don't have these emotions to adapt to. So they will fail physically. And that is why our infrastructure matters more than the motivation. So we're lacking this infrastructure. We're lacking infrastructure, we are lacking the education, we have these educational limitations, we are lacking this, there is a big skill gap, and then there is the cost, the high cost in capital. So these are the reasons why robotics implementation is slow. These are the reasons. Now, I say robotics has not been implemented in Nigeria. What I'm saying is it is slow, it is late. So when people say that Nigeria is not yet ready for robotics, that's a very false accusation, a false claim, right? Because Nigeria has already embraced robotics. But the thing is that it is late. It is not that it is incapable, right? So by being late, it means that you can still enter into robotics, right? But you must be strategic about this entrance. Now, about the now, to encourage you further, this session wasn't included to scare you for robotics. It should tell you that Nigeria has actually embraced robotics, right? That's embraced robotics, but we are moving at a very slow pace because of the skill, because of the for the reasons I highlighted earlier: the cost in capital, the skill gap, the infrastructure, and the rest of them. But talking about people who are actually making names for themselves in the robotics industry, we've already met them. I will not go outside here. So we've met Saka, and then we've met Bakel. So Bakel, who is the CTO and the founder of Aurora Robotics, right? Then we met Saka, who is involved in competitive robotics and other areas of robotics. So these are people that have shown us that robotics is actually possible in Nigeria, very possible in Nigeria. But what does it mean for students like you and myself? What does it mean for engineers too? So if you are getting into robotics, what does it mean? But I want you to understand that robotics is not a shortcut career, right? So robotics is one career that will reward your patience. Bakel sometimes he has said it over. Sometimes you even will be on a call. He'll be on a call, and I'll say, "Guy, you need to sleep," because his eyes are already dropping. I mean, he's after something. He's after something. So there is that patience he takes. Even with these patients, you learn from your work, and then you learn to practice. You learn to practice in your social engagement and your interaction with other people, right? So there is this patience that transcends from your work down to your social life. So robotics will reward that patience. It rewards your knowledge of the fundamentals, right? Even if you just know your ROS, if you are good at Python programming and you go with and you want to specialize in uh, um, software for robotics, right? Robotics ROS development, right? And you're patient with it, taking it each step at a time, right? Um, it's going to reward that knowledge, that fundamental knowledge. Then, if you're someone who likes fixing broken things too, robotics is a career for you. It's one career that you are going to enjoy because you must enjoy fixing what doesn't work. But if you want fast money, it is better to choose another field because the state of robotics in Nigeria is not at this point is not to make fast money unless by some magic or by some doing you can just get your finish a course today and then go on Upwork and proclaim yourself as an ROS developer, and then you get 1 or 2 gigs and the rest of them. So if you want fast money, it will be best to choose another field. But if you want that long-term relevance in this industry, if you want that long-term relevance, robotics is a solid field for you. But now to answer these critical questions here, let's see. Now, what should Nigeria do since it's moving at this pace? Which is the better option? Should we wait? Should we wait until available, that is, react when competitors force adoption, accept higher costs, lost opportunities, and yada yada yada? Is all in the slide. Now, what I'm trying to communicate, what I'm trying to see. Okay. Okay. No. I think they can hear me. Please confirm you can hear me. Can you still hear me? Okay. Okay, good. All right. So the critical question now that we'll ask ourselves now is, um, how should we wait? I mean, should we wait for either of these options? Should we wait, or we should just follow the trend now? Should we just invest early? Remember, I had said that robotics is not just for the engineers. If you're a farmer, if you're a businessman, if you're an investor, even, right? Robotics is also for, because you can invest in 1 or 2 prototypes and then. So now the question is, because now robotics adoption it does not happen because a country is ready, right? Nigeria is not ready, so it does not just happen because this country is ready, and we are not looking at, we ourselves, we are not waiting for Nigeria to be ready for robotics before we go into robotics, right? We have our own time frames, right? We have our own timelines, but the thing is, your individual, your in battle with yourself, right? Now, should you wait until should you wait until the labor becomes expensive? Should you wait? I think it has gone off. Can you still see my screen? I don't think I'm presenting anymore. Can you see my screen?
No,
No, we
no.
can't see. It's blank. No.
Okay. Let me stop sharing and share that again. Okay, confirm if you can see my screen.
We can't see your screen, sir.
We can see it.
Confirm if you can see
I
the
can
screen
see.
now.
Yes, we can see it, sir.
Okay, good. All right. So Nigeria will adopt robotics, right? That's a fact. The only question now is who benefits? Who benefits from this adoption? Right now, the people who benefit from robotics, from entering robotics, are people who built early, who started learning the skill early, right? People people also from engineering background who understand the system, who understand how the systems work. People from the marketing background who knows how to who knows how to market this skill. People who are investors, right? Investors will also benefit because if they find that if they find if they find this prototype and then they can do some future cost valuation on it and see that okay, probably it's going to pay in so number of years, they can also benefit from it. Right? And people who are preparing quietly as we are preparing here on Aurora Robotics. So now, is it this set of people who built early, people who understand systems, or people who built quietly, and the rest of them that I've mentioned? Or is it the people who waited for Nigeria, for the system, for robotics to come in fully? I mean, who waited until you start seeing robots walk the streets of Lagos or walk the streets of Port Harcourt? Or people who for their businesses, who don't know how to get to the bare metal of things. Instead, what they'll do is they'll buy products from outside and see how to, and instead, those products are the ones that are going to be doing things for them. So that is the question that we'll ask ourselves now. So who benefits from this early or from the late adoption of robotics? So we've been able to see that it is the people, it is this set who have prepared quietly, is this set who have this systems thinking. By systems thinking, I don't just mean engineers. I mean people who understand what works, right? People who know the type of businesses to invest in, right? People who know that this investment, like farmers who know that this investment into their product is going to work. Yeah, okay. And people who enter the system early, people who build early. So robotics is not by accident, right? It is something that you plan for, something that you plan towards, and that was the purpose for this why robotics, to introduce you to the system, to tell you about robotics, to tell you, okay, this is what works, this is what doesn't work, and this is how to follow, this is how to follow it, right? So it is clear that robotics is no longer a myth in Nigeria. I think we've discussed this. We discussed all this. So it's clear that robotics is no longer a myth in Nigeria, right? So despite being, despite having low funding, but despite being under supported, yes, despite being at its early stage, it is very much real, right? And every ecosystem starts this way. Every ecosystem you can think of. How did the tech ecosystem start? This tech boom, how did it start? When it started from Port Harcourt first, then before you know, it went to Lagos. That's how it started out messy. It started out very, very slow. People didn't even know it was going to thrive. If you go to the north, unlike what most people think, in the north, tech tech is thriving. I was even surprised myself because it's very, very surprising. It may seem slow. It may, because they may not make so much noise about it, right? But and then it is even worse when you underestimate it. When you underestimate the value of this ecosystem. So every ecosystem starts this way. It starts underestimated. It starts slow. It starts messy. So if you are a student, it's important to learn deeply. If you're a student, it's important to learn deeply. If you are an engineer, then I will encourage you to build dangerously. If you're an engineer, build dangerously, right? So if you're an investor, it will be important that you start laying those blocks now, start looking early. So if you're an educator, I don't want to go holding your soldering iron. If you don't want to go, you can also teach the software as you can teach aspects of robotics. You don't just have to know about the microcontrollers. Okay, you have to know about the microcontroller, but you don't have to hold your soldering iron in order to be robotics. So if you are an educator, teach early, go into deployments, not just theory, right? Get your hand busy, right? So Nigeria doesn't need more of this robotics hype, right? What it needs now is it needs builders, right? It needs builders, it needs early adopters of the system, it needs people who understand the system, who are coming to understand the system, or who are willing to put in the time. That's what Nigeria needs. Because when all these pioneer adopters, when they come out, you start hearing them call for people who have so skill to come teach in so areas. People who have so skill to come to. I mean, in Bauchi, I experienced it. So the question is not about, it's no longer if Nigeria has stepped into robotics now. It is now the pace at which robotics is moving. And that is the state of robotics in Nigeria today. So that will be all for that's the slide, and the floor is now open for questions. Any questions? Okay, someone is asking, how can we improve robotics in Nigeria, right? Now, I want to permit me to restructure that question, to paraphrase, right? Instead of asking how can we improve robotics in Nigeria, because since you're a Nigerian, okay, let me come from, how can I improve myself? How can I improve in robotics myself personally? Because if you improve in robotics, right, then the name is going to fly in Nigeria, right? So it is by getting your hands dirty, right? Doing the hard work, getting these skills and learning the skills, trying to niche down. See, robotics can be very confusing. Bakel and Saka had mentioned several branches of robotics that are mouth watering, right? That when you just hear them, you say, "Oh, I want to go into this." And when you go online and check and look up what this person does, you see, this person makes more money than what this other person in the same robotics is doing, but different branches, right? So what it needs now is that focus, right? It needs this laser target focus, right? So if you have started out as a developer and you see someone in embedded systems, you see someone handling the hardware, it is, yes, you can appreciate, you can encourage the person, but then you are still on the right path. So developing yourself will be developing Nigeria as a whole. So by the time you are now developed now, you can now organize platforms, you can now come up with platforms, you can now collaborate on projects, and then the name is going to fly. I don't know if I've been able to answer that question. If I have any other question. We are taking questions now. Any other question? Okay, so in the absence of further questions, I think we'll call it a day here. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. And you can send your questions, drop your questions in the group, and there'll always be someone to address them. Thank you. And the slide will also be shared to the group.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.